Yo, 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 welcome back to the Gymnazo Podcast. This is Michael Hughes, your solo host, once again, diving into kind of like the series. We started the last podcast. This is like talks that I do on stages, in fitness conferences. I was like, these got to be podcasts. Like, these are just cool. I don't know. I think they're cool. Listening opportunities to reflect and to dive into movement based content in the fitness industry and how it applies to the personal trainer who wants to have a career as a personal trainer. So here we go. This title that I'm diving into has been called a few things, but essentially it's bridging the gap between fitness and medicine, or medical-based movement therapeutics. I think would be a fun way of kind of saying it. And I would like to start this talk with this concept of like, well, where are we currently at? If we're going to bridge a gap between two things, from an engineering standpoint, right, we should probably know where those two things are so we can write the most effective and efficient line or path or process to those two things. So if we don't have a clear definition, if we're not asking the right question, then our answers are going to be a little funky. So let's just kind of define the state of the healthcare industry. And we use the word healthcare industry very, I think, appropriately here. Not by technical standards, but by realistic standards, meaning healthcare is what is necessarily, you're doing it in health for greater health. And then the sick care industry is you are sick doing it because that is the case, and you're doing it to get out of sickness for better health, right? The whole point of both of these industries, one is defined technically and one is I'm making up, right? The healthcare industry is technically the sick care industry, and we're defining the healthcare industry as what essentially prevention-based practitioners do in this system versus those practitioners who only treat people when they're broken and busted, etc. Little tangent, but I wanted to make sure I was totally being clear. Like, we're all trying to achieve health, but is that what we're really trying to achieve? Sick care industry. And this is, I don't want to get like too conspiracy theory here, but it just raises too many eyebrows to me, right? If you really dive into the logical thinking of healthcare systems and a profit-based system, I'm not saying capitalism is bad. I think it's amazing. However, they're it's not perfect. So I'm going to kind of dive into that piece a little bit. I really feel a strong, if you're watching this, I feel this is going to be a very kind of like up, hands in the air kind of talk, and I hope I don't knock over my water bottle and hit the mic, and because this is a passionate topic for me, and there's no one else in this podcast studio but me, so I can do whatever I want. Okay, so healthcare, sick care. When I went to school, college, I really kind of thought about, okay, wow, those PAs, physicians, assistant friends of mine who want to go do that, and those physical therapists, people who want to go do that, and chiropractors who want to do that, and those athletic trainers, a lot of friends who wanted to go do that, and some like, I want to just do PE, like I love kids, I love school, and I think I can help out. So the pedagogy, however you want to say that, they go into that one, and then, there's a few people like, yeah, I'm taking kinesiology because I want to be a medical doctor. And I'm like, wow, that's really cool, like, so now, years later, we're talking decade two later, I'm not talking to those friends again. And it's interesting how many of them are saying the same thing. And this is what I'm getting from my physical therapy friends, who graduated, very recently out of the university system, the doctorate of physical therapy system. And they're kind of saying, I was really taught how to take a test. I never actually saw a patient in school. I had to go to clinics. We never brought anyone in to kind of talk about it. It was always learned in clinics, and I think that's fine. But it's like you wouldn't have like a group discussion talk about actual clients in a classroom. And for this particular student at this particular school, the answer was no. And I was like, okay, interesting. And then like, yeah, it's kind of like they just want you to pass the test because that's how they make their numbers look good on people applying for that school. It's like, all right, interesting. Maybe this is just a biased individual, I'm imagining, not all systems are like this, but it's like, oh, wow, okay. And then talking to some more of my medical, kind of MD-based friends, like, I went to school and I'm essentially a glorified pharmaceutical rep. I'm like, what? What do you mean by that? I was like, well, you learn a lot about, the chemistry and the physiology about how, essentially drugs work in the human body. Like, it's like you learn, okay, this what this does and this does, and I'm really skipping over. There's a lot to medical school. I don't want to attempt that we had the entire conversation, but their overall consensus was, in terms of problem solving and understanding underlying conditions and how to get to root cause, it's a lot of like, this is what this study says, this is what this study says, and that's what we therefore kind of do. It's really not deep diving into problem solving. I'm like, oh, okay, all right, that seems a little, to me that seems interesting, right? When someone says I'm sick, it's like, okay, do you have X, Y, Z? Okay, you fit that bucket, let's go down that bucket. And that makes sense. That's good triage, or not the technical word, but like, yeah, let's solve the easiest problem first, and if that doesn't work, let's go harder and harder. Versus, hey, let's cut you open, and like, no, I just had this cold. So it makes sense to go that way, but it usually ends with, here is a pill, usually. Versus, here's where to eat, here's where to sleep, here's where to think, here's where to move. Now, again, that's not everybody. That's just the person who I spoke to. Again, biased. Is always biased. I'm just sharing what I'm hearing. This is just what I'm hearing. I have a lot of older clients who are older who've been medical doctors for a long time, probably longer than I've been alive. And most of them say that same thing. That's where the industry is going. But they all say, for the most part, in our facility movement, not in our facility, but in our area of movement, you guys have got to move, you've got to exercise, you've got to add more to what you're doing. It's not just taking this statin. It's not just taking this, essentially cholesterol-based pill that hopes, etc. I don't want to get too off in the weeds. Kind of getting there. So this comment say like that's where we're at, and then talking to some. This would be my last example. Talking to some orthopedic doctors. It's like they almost. This is them saying this. It's almost like they just want you to say sick enough, so you keep coming back to the system. It's not like that's what they want you to do. They don't want you to be sick, but they don't want to totally heal you. And this is just their deeper understanding feeling. It's like, let's just go after what's in front of us. The knee's busted, let's fix the knee. You're talking to a few kind of like eyes, nose, throat doctors. It's like, let's just fix what the symptom is, but not really understanding that it may be much deeper than that. And that's kind of how they're billed. That's how they're paid. But that's not really how they think. And this is where I'm kind of going to change gears here. That's not necessarily how they think. They didn't necessarily get into the industry because they want to follow a standardized protocol. Yet, standardized protocols are very safe. And I understand you're dealing with people's health here. It's like the biggest asset of their lives. But is there more to it? And the more to it is that they kind of have to treat this way because that's how they get reimbursed in the physical therapy world. In the medical world, maybe a little different. I don't really understand that per se, but it's very much dictated on what the person came in for and what the insurance is going to pay for. And that's how you can run a very successful medical practitioner, movement, sense, health business. If not, you go cash and you hopefully get the clientele that can pay that, or you have a good system or pricing that allows that to happen. So it's like, okay, cool. That's kind of the current state, very brief way. You go to hospitals when you're busted. You go to physical therapists when you're busted. You go to doctors when you're busted. You go to chiropractors when you're busted. Massage therapists less so, right? There's a little more maintenance on that one. Personal trainers, do you go to personal trainers when you're busted? No, you don't. You don't go to personal trainers when you're busted. But what happens when you get busted at a personal training facility or gym facility? We'll dive into that. Okay, so then there's the other state. So that's kind of it was a long, drawn-out way, but I just wanted to make a point on all the information that I've heard in the recent years. That was the sentiment of what I've heard. And I'm not saying in any case that these practitioners are wrong, bad, or doing anything that's crazy. They're trying to help people just as like as anyone else is who has a bleeding heart and wants to serve people to make them feel better. That's just the environment that they're feeling around them. Okay, so what's the environment of those in the kind of the preventative healthcare system? Those who are more than likely unlicensed, right, practitioners, mostly nutritionists and mostly movement practitioners or personal trainers or any sort of that, coaches, not athletic trainers are licensed, I'm pretty sure. They're at least highly certified in that area, but we're talking about like the coaches of youth, youth sports, those kind of things, gymnastics gyms, etc. What's going on there? Well, what I'm finding and what I found for the past 20 years of my career is that the gym world has certainly gone to a pretty dramatic shift from, again, we're talking about in my lifespan of kind of like Arnold Schwarzenegger on, in a sense, right? We work out for the sake of physique. That's what most gyms in the country are designed around. And even as we went to a boutique shift, meaning out of big box into more kind of smaller 3,000 to 10,000 square foot facilities that focus on kind of one thing, CrossFit would be a good way to describe that big shift. Bar would be another. Kickboxing, even that would be good. Pilates, right? Even just personal training. They focus on just personal training. And Gym Mazel falls within that camp. We are a personal training gym, even though we do group training, but it's essentially always with a trainer or trainer-led. And the concept is that mostly the industry is designed around physique. I want to look good. Look at how big box gyms are designed and the fit and equipment that is in its place, its facility design. It's isolated base machinery, it's treadmills, bikes, everything very forward and back, stationary, burn calories, cut fat off your body, mirrors, dumbbell racks in front of mirrors. What are they doing there? They're pushing isolated movement patterns, very forward and back, very up and down. A little water. And they're trying to rep out for the sake of hypertrophy. They're trying to make their muscles more toned, look good, etc. I don't think there's an argument on that one. I don't believe that's necessarily my opinion. I think that's just what currently is. Now it's not a complete sampling of the market, obviously, but I think that would be the very good. If you look at its design is kind of towards function. That's what it is. I don't think people realize that. My hand is raised. I certainly didn't realize that as I was in it. I just thought that's what fitness was. Fitness was strong muscles, right? Capable joints, able to lift things vertically, horizontally, very sagittal plane base. That's what I thought fitness was, And yeah, you get into a group exercise class, you move around, you dance a little bit, you get some water aerobics going on, a little bit of kickbox action, a little spin, just good other ways to kind of move and groove a little bit. And you don't want so much weight, you just want good quality movement. And I just question, is that good quality movement? Well, again, where's your scale? Where's your scale leaning towards? If it's based upon how you move on the outside of that facility, it's not close. It's not very close at all. If it is how we performed in my kinesiology labs, that's really close. Because the labs that I went to was very much measuring hamstring isolated curls, the watt power of someone on a bike and their related oxygen consumption. Okay, cool stuff. Really cool stuff. But I'm going to say this in a very appropriate way. Who the fuck cares? Most of the clients do not care. They can give a shit. And I'm getting a little bit kind of amped here a little bit because essentially they want to move well, feel well, and be well. Beyond the age of 35, 40, which is a lot of the population, they realized that the movement they had wasn't done very, very well. It wasn't done like miserably wrong. They loved high school sports. But the training that they received was more than likely subpar. And it's not because the people delivering that care, me included for a good chunk of my career, it's not because we wanted to. It's like, oh, I'm choosing this way. This is going to be subpar training. No, we were doing the best that we thought we could do. And a lot of it is pretty good stuff. I said those words precisely, pretty good stuff. We've gotten this far. But as humans evolve, right? This is the tough thing about humans from what I've learned. We get used to the status quo pretty quickly. You know, if you want to measure back 100 years ago, man, like we're doing a really good job. Our health status is pretty good. We're living a lot longer. If you start to kind of start to microdose that a little bit, you know, like are we living longer with quality? Well, as you know, again, maybe measure 10 years ago from now or 20 years ago from now, you know, is it quality life? I don't know. But you know, let's go back then. So like I'm talking about modern day technology and what is available in the market from a technology understanding of human movement perspective and where we can go in the future. That's what I'm talking about, the current state of healthcare and why I'm setting the scale in a certain way. Like our current gym affair is not good. It's subpar. But for the vast majority of the industry, they think it's doing pretty good. Nothing wrong with them, but I would like to have this podcast be about a little bit of an eye-opening way of like, wait a minute, we can do so much more. And let that be not just motivational, but inspirational, that you want to do it. You actually want to step into the void, the gap between healthcare and sick care. And we want to bridge that gap. And again, we believe, this is our strong opinion, we believe at Schmelzer we have an operational system that bridges that gap. Operational system simply means it's not sales and marketing, it's not finance, it's not computer tech, it's not an app, you know what I'm saying? It's not a piece of equipment. It's the way that trainers do their jobs. Operational system, how to set up programs, how to program, the design of a facility. Not the equipment necessarily, but the design. Our ability to say, here is how we engineer our product. And I don't want to get too wordy here in a sense, but like, this is how we actually deliver our product. Our SOPs, our kind of standard operating procedures of what a kinesiologist, and we have to kind of revitalize that name a little bit. I could do another podcast on the lack of the term kinesiologist or kinesiology in its actual applied sense in the market. I don't think there are very many kinesiologists in the U.S., and that's a shame because about 28,000 of them get graduated every single year from the university system, yet none of them call themselves what their degree says they are. That's like graduating with an engineer in any of the many field of engineers and not calling yourself an engineer, because there aren't actual jobs out there for engineers that require that education. Different podcast. No, I don't think that's a different podcast. I'm going to step back on this. Is the current state of the healthcare system. And who's part of the healthcare system? Well, kinesiology students. So everything I said sticks. Everything I said sticks because that was my reality. My reality is I got this education, but I didn't need that education to do the job that the market was providing, which is a personal trainer. I didn't need any of that education, meaning I could have gotten it someplace else, or a gym would have asked me, "Are you a kinesiologist? Can I see your degree?" They didn't care. They said, "What?" They said, "Show me your certified personal trainer certificate," which is essentially a weekend, maybe 3 weeks if it's really good. My ISSA one, when I did it back then, was actually a challenging test. I really applaud ISSA for that concept. I had to do a lot of case study work, but it was still subpar education. I didn't know it then. And so all these people coming out say, "Oh, whoa, no, kinesiology is just a bridge education. You know, you're all going to go PTs or chiropractors or PAs. You know, that's where you're going." No, not really. Not really. You know, like, do we have to do that? You know, can't we just be part of the healthcare preventative care system? It's like, oh yeah, go be a personal trainer. That's like the only option. There's a few other options, like go do physiology labs. You know, it's like, and take blood oxygen. It's like, that's blood oxygen levels and tests. It's like, that's such a small population, and it's like, who really cares? Unless you're at a certain level, or a certain level of sickness, or a certain level of health. Okay. I think that's kind of a good state of where it is. But then there's a small little kind of grassroots thing happening in the fitness side of this, Grand Canyon. One side is sick care, one besides healthcare. Healthcare, there's a one little population, and obviously I think I'm in it. Jim Muscle's in it. Is this grassroots thing of like, wait a minute, there's something more than what we're doing. We can understand the human body more, and we don't need to be a biomechanist, which is essentially someone who, I mean, just think about how they make video games. Again, this is just a rough commentary. How they make video games, they put those little balls on them and green screen. You know, they really study joint mechanics. But again, is it integrated or is it isolated? Is it integrated, meaning it applies to human existence and life, not just people with disabilities, which is a cool study. It really is, you know, like the design of artificial limbs that get attached. That's a really cool, again, really cool. Nothing against that kind of understanding of biomechanics and how it applies to a special population, but how does it apply to the entire population? And that's where I think we're kind of missing this boat. And so moving on from that, it's really kind of like, okay, so this small little sector of people are doing stuff. It's been going on since the 70s. Actually, it's really going on from the beginning of time, basically. But it's been growing and growing and growing. And like a lot of people, there's a kind of like big people who are pushing it forward. But in this way, because like any grassroots things, you know, you're not just pushing it forward, you're pushing it into a resistance force of the way things have been. And what I love about living in this time, and this podcast was done in 2020-24, this is the most innovative time in the world. And whenever things go crap or belly up or bankrupt, innovation solves it. Innovation is the hero. Innovation is the process that gets us onto a new path, because the way that we were doing it broke. So let's find a new way of doing it. And most of you know, well, maybe you don't know, but I really appreciate and love a lot of disruptive innovation. SpaceX is one of them. Tesla is one of them. A lot of the Elon Musk companies, you know, to be honest with you, they're disruptive, flat out. They are doing something different that the industry that they're involved in has been doing it before. To me, that's not a opinion statement. You may not like what they're doing, or the market may not like it, or the news may not like it, but they're still doing something different. Doing something different isn't honorable. Doing something different that works to solve a problem that is in existence, that's admirable in my simple way of saying it. So let's do admirable things that create change in people's lives, even though it may be different. And let's try to put down our swords here, saying you're stepping onto my territory. Yeah, we are, but you can change with me. And again, obviously that's a very optimistic mindset. Most people don't want to do that because they're making a lot of money in what they're doing. But can we solve a lot of people's issues with preventative care? And this is where the sector is coming into play, because they understand movement from a functional way of doing it. They're looking at food from a functional way. They're looking at medicine from a functional way. And they're looking at stress and lifestyle factors from a functional way. Functional meaning context is on the person in the real life and what they're really living through. And I think that's where we can come in really, really strong here. And I think I want you to, for what I believe we can step into it as the movement professional, the movement therapist, the fitness coach, the personal trainer. I think where we can step into this most is on this side of musculoskeletal disorders. And I had a point in a previous podcast about that. That's what we need to be able to solve. So let's kind of put this into a context. What are we solving? Well, we're solving strains, sprains, tendonitis, arthritis, muscle pulls, fractures, fibromyalgia, just like everything hurts kind of thing, low back pain, plantar fasciitis, postural stress, structure stuff. You know, those are the musculoskeletal disorders. Essentially, soft tissue injuries caused by sudden or sustained exposure to repetitive motions, forces, vibrations, awkward positions that we don't think are awkward, like sitting in a chair funky. These are the disorders that affect muscles, nerves, tendons, joints, cartilage of the upper, lower limbs, neck, and lower back, right? This superstructure of the body. That's what musculoskeletal disorders are. How many of the sprains and strains and tendinitis and arthritis and muscle pulls and fractures is kind of, we don't really deal with fractures, but we deal with the healing process of bone fractures. How many of those things, like, I'm going to go see a physical therapist right away. I feel pain, I'm going. I'm off to the races. No, most people live with it for weeks, if not months, if not years, before they make a decision to do something about it. They're not doing preventative work. They're waiting until something gets so bad it breaks. I wonder where they got that idea from. Okay, all right. I'm writing that down, figuratively. Could we do that, movement professionals of the world? Unlicensed, highly passionate movers of people who have an education that they know is not good enough but want more, but don't know where to find it? Yeah, I think we could. Okay, so what's the dent, financial dent within the market? All right, so I don't have the number in front of me. I should have the number in front of me. Maybe someone's listening. You can send it to me. What is the healthcare industry's TAM, total addressable market, in dollars? It's got to be, I mean, I dare not to say this number, but maybe in the trillions? Perhaps? What about just the United States one? Maybe still trillions? Okay, so what chunk of that, maybe not trillions, but a trillion, right? So what's the chunk of musculoskeletal disorders annually? Well, annually, it's the last report that I read, which is getting a little dated, a few years, not 5 years, but a few years. I probably need to reanalyze it. This one is $600 billion. That's a B, billion dollars annually. That is annually go into musculoskeletal disorders or orthopedic types of injuries, and the money spent there. Okay, wow, that's a lot of money. I mean, I don't know if you've seen a chart of what a million looks like versus a billion, or even what 100,000 looks like to a million. It's astronomical. We say these words so loosely now. It's astronomically bigger. That's impressive. So what if, and here's another stat, 9 out of 10, again, this is getting a little old, a few years, not very, very old though, but 9 out of 10 orthopedic visits, if you tally them all up, 9 out of 10 times orthopedic says non-surgical. I don't need to do surgery on that now or ever, right? Again, it could be in a few weeks, but that visit's like, no, it's not ready for it yet. Let's give it a little more time. Waiting for it to break, waiting for it to get worse before they go in and do very, very invasive surgery. Now, a lot of this stuff is very microscopic now in a sense, right? Microscopic means very, very small. They send in little kind of wires and cameras, but it's still the recovery. We're still slicing away a ligament or a tendon. So still pretty invasive. So what if we can go in there and help that? Do you think the personal training industry could take a little slice of that $600 billion and have a lot to go around? A lot? I mean, like a lot. I mean, at the very least, it would make 600 billionaires, But it could make millions of millionaires. I think my math's right. If not, I think you get my point. So it's kind of interesting, it would certainly make millions of six-figure incomes. That would certainly be the case. My math's sound on that one. So do you think we could solve for that? I think we definitely could, and that's where we need to focus, and that is the bridging of this gap. So it's kind of really, really cool. So a few more stats from WHO, World Health Organization, as I want to make sure that people get across here, that there's 1.7 billion people have musculoskeletal conditions worldwide. So that's how big of the total addressable market is worldwide. That is essentially like 1/5 of the population. Like, that's pretty crazy. That's pretty crazy if you think about it. I don't even know if there's that many cars in the world. If not, like, we're talking about the same TAM as an automobile. That's a big market. Musculoskeletal conditions are the leading contributor to disability worldwide. with lower back pain being the single leading cause of disabilities in 160 countries. Low back pain is the single leading cause of disability in 160 countries. We can fix that, you guys. We can do something about that. We can dramatically help with that. Dramatically. Like, if not remove a lot of those cases. Here's another stat. Because of the population growth and aging, the number of people living with musculoskeletal conditions and associated kind of functional limitations, right? Those like just they don't move in the way that they want to move, is rapidly increasing, as a statement from the World Health Organization, rapidly increasing. So if you think about like a graph, it's not like going up at a 45, that's like baseline. It's going up faster than that. Which means more people need the services. More people need it. And we're only stepping into a higher computer and robotic technology phase where life is going to be easier for the human being, meaning we don't need to put much energy into doing things like picking food, finding food, grocery shopping. Those things will be delivered to us, relatively speaking, only further making it challenging for the human body to stay healthy, because the human body needs one thing: movement. What taught me this example in a very, very sad way was someone who has a spinal cord severing, and they can't move their lower limbs, or they can't move anything at all below their cervical spine. They get bed sores. What's a bed sore? It's a constant pressure on a set of tissue, skin, that essentially starts to erode its health. It's like a blister almost. And how do they prevent that? They rotate them. They move them. They move the patient. They move the human being, the person. They don't keep the constant pressure on them. So if I don't move, I actually start to decay in a sense. It's like, yeah, well, I think the body's telling us something. So that's kind of a few stats on it. So what do I believe the current state of the healthcare fitness is? What do I believe in the end of my lifetime? What does that kind of mean to me? Like, what's my personal mission? And maybe a few of you attached to a relative mission. Well, my mission is that I'm going to kind of, I don't know if I should dive into this too big to begin with. Bold statements. Let's do it. It's a podcast. I believe pharmaceuticals are going to get a run for their money. I'm going to just have a prediction of fun out there. The insurance company will realize they cannot be for-profit. They have to be non-profit because there's not enough money in it. I believe, and this is not I'm not running for office or anything. I'm just saying, I don't like how insurance is a for-profit business. It just doesn't make sense for me. It just doesn't make sense. Maybe healthcare shouldn't be for-profit either. If someone's listening to this, well, geez, Michael, you should just be happy that you're helping people. I mean, there's an argument to that. But one is a blue-collar job and one's a white-collar job. And blue-collar means you're working for your living, and the other one is you're at a relative desk just making sure that numbers crunch and that enough people die, you still make money. Just a slight difference. So, pharmaceuticals are getting run for the money. They've started to adopt that this is just a possibility to help versus the ability to help people with fighting off disease and sicknesses. Are they going to go away? I don't know. I don't think so. There's too much good in them, to be honest with you. But I don't know if there should be. I don't know if they should be as profitable as they are. So that's kind of my high level. Those things are just normal. And then basically the people who take care of the asset of the human body the most, which is kind of the human body and the brain, teachers. Now this is maybe too wow, Michael, you're high or something. Maybe I am. Maybe the two of them are too, the teachers, the artists, the people who really express the fundamental of joy and pleasure of life. Again, we're moving to a state where robotics is probably going to do a lot of the manual labor for us. These are the people who are getting paid the most. Entertainment will certainly be there. I don't think that's ever going away. But I hope that there's a balance. and the people who treat the mind and the body the best, those are the people with the relative wealth. And I'm trying to say that just as simply as possible, but there's more factors that go involved with this one that are much more government-based, policy-based for this to be achievable, but I don't see how it's not going there. So that's how I believe the current state of the fitness industry will be. Current meaning the life that we live. And it really comes down to understanding, and I mentioned this briefly in the podcast prior, is this kind of medical condition -7 and competitive athletic elite sportsmanship as +7, this kind of big spectrum. And we think that training is really the most effective, or that's where most trainers are rather, is in that kind of positive 1, 2, 3 zone. In reality, personal trainers really need to be able to understand and solve bigger problems in the negative 1, 2, 3 zones. And negative 4 steps into physical therapy. And I believe that there's a co-space there for the short term. For the long term, I don't necessarily think so, because insurance is running the game in physical therapeutics and from the license level. I don't think anyone would disagree with me on that one. They're running the show, and physical therapists have to map towards how insurance payment is going. And if you don't take insurance, then you do your own game. Totally different topic. So this opportunity zone that we're in, and again, bridging the gap, right? This is the structure of the suspension bridge that's going between these two, is getting people before they're too sick into a state of better balance. That's the opportunity zone. And to make it sexy and fun and affordable, cheap, I don't like that word, affordable, accessible, common state. Just as the dental industry has done. And I don't know how hard they had to fight to get there. I'm pretty sure pretty hard. I know how hard chiropractic had to fight to get there. I know massage therapy is fighting hard at the policy state level. I know IRSA's apparently, I'm going to find out more this year, is fighting hard, but I'm not sure who they're fighting for. I say that with a very curiosity statement. I'm not sure who they're fighting for, the gyms or the trainers, the owners or the practitioners. Sometimes they're the same. Most of the time in this industry, they're not. So I'm curious about that one. And then if we can understand this fiber, this kind of support structure of bridging this gap, if we can be intelligent enough to understand it, not saying we're dumb, more intelligent, then I think we have not only a fighting chance, I think, and this is what I love about capitalism, this is one thing I love about capitalism, maybe state that better, is it is whatever's best wins, right? That's the essence of it. Whatever's best wins. In a fair market, that's what wins. So produce a better product, and you're going to get the lion's share of the market, relatively speaking. So training's not that good of a product. That's why it's not winning. I believe we have a great operating system, and that product will redefine the space. We're not the only ones doing it. I'm just one person talking about it. And that's where we can step into it and to provide the opportunity zone to clients who want to maintain health. And when they dip below that bar a little bit, we got them. Catched them, taking care of it, fixing them, getting back to relative optimum health. Knowing that optimum health is a relatively declining curve on this bell curve, in a sense, right, of life. But we can still do it with relative excitement and fun and prosperity. Vitality is the word that we use. So there's a cool kind of case study that I kind of want to maybe end this podcast with, and then kind of maybe just share with you what we've done, our operating system, and then what you can do. There's this cool client of ours. I don't think I'll make up a name, but maybe you don't know if I'm making up a name or not. Her name's Tony. She's really awesome, a great person. The story of Tony started when we were at our big box gym here in San Luis Obispo, trying to keep names out of it as much as I can, just for the sake of it. And we had a particular coach was sitting at the front of our entrance to our studio at the time, and he said, "Hey, come in and try Gymnazo. Come try Gymnazo." These members had to be a member of the gym that they were walking into, and to even try us, they had to be a member of that gym. So that, so we kind of were like, "Hey, we're kind of a specialized training group. Come on over." And this one lady was like, "Gosh, I really want to." Tony said, "I really want to." Man, it looks so much fun in there. Oh, the turf is orange. Huh, never seen orange turf before. Yep, we put an orange turf in our first spot. There's a reason for that, and it's not just because it's orange. And so she's like, "Gosh, I can't do it. My knee's busted. I used to do that stuff. My knee, I've gone to several orthopedics, several neurologists, and they're just basic. Their statement is the knee's as good as it's going to get until we do a total knee." And she was in her 40s at the time, so she goes in, does the elliptical, as she was telling my coach, and that's the one thing that she can do. But she so loves fitness and movement. But that's kind of the drug that feeds her, is that elliptical machine, because it doesn't hurt her knee. So, she's still kind of a very ambitious person. At times she'll push it, and the knee didn't like it. And so, she kept walking past, and the coach kept saying, "Hey, check this out," and finally she says, "All right, I'll come in. But I have to warn you, I got to go easy on myself." And so she comes in. I'm actually the person coaching that session she comes into. And described the warm-up, the whole thing. I talked to her briefly. My knee is like, "Okay, cool." I don't really know that she's been talking to this coach. And she comes in, and we have her do a basic lunge pattern as one of our drills. And she points me over, says, "Hey, Michael," points at her knee. "This bugs my knee." I'm like, "Oh, okay, all right. Do you mind just doing that lunge again for me? In fact, let's just make it real safe." I was like, "Instead of going forward, let's do a lateral lunge. And we'll do a lateral lunge with a toe in." Just pointing her toe in about 45 degrees, tops. She's like, "It's still a lunge, though." I was like, "Just give it a shot for me. Trust me if you don't mind." So she does it. And she comes out of it with a bit of a kind of startled face, surprised, didn't realize that someone was behind a door when they opened it, kind of surprised look, not scared, but "Oh, wow, what happened there?" And she did it again with a kind of another look, and I'm actually already at this point kind of slowly walking away, "All right, is that feeling okay for you?" Not knowing her backstory, right? Not knowing her backstory. And because she's showing signs that it's doing better or good, actually. Then I can go, "Cool, awesome. I'm going to go to the next person, make sure that they're doing well." And she kind of turns back at me and says, "Hey, Michael, this doesn't hurt anymore." I'm like, "Oh, perfect. That's exactly what I wanted to do. That was the intention of those two movement tweaks for knee. Awesome. Let's keep on going. You got 5 seconds left. Cool. Boom, 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 boom." And so it comes out to me that this whole story is behind this. And I'm getting a phone call from her the next day. And she's kind of sobbing. And I'm like, "Oh, no, what did I do?" I've had those, your clients are so sore. Oh, man, I remember, at the first work, I had someone throw up. It's all my early days. I'm like, "Oh, I'm such a good trainer." No, you're not, dude. Michael, you weren't a good trainer because you had someone throw up in the first session. So I'm just going back in my memory lane here. And she says, "Michael, I haven't felt my quad this activated, sore in so long. My glutes, I feel them." I'm like, "Yeah, right on. Cool. I hope it's not too much." "No, it's perfect. It's right where it needs to be." And I'm like, "Well, how's your knee?" She's like, "That's the part I'm calling you about. It doesn't hurt. My knee doesn't hurt, and my muscles are sore. I could still get my muscles sore, but my knee had to pay the price for it, my knee joint." I'm like, "Awesome, Tony. Well, welcome to Gymnazo. That's what we do. That's our thing." And she became a client for, I don't want to use the word life. She's still training. She's not training with us. She moved across the country. But there's a picture of her that we still keep as deservingly that any of our members, and when they reach 1,000 workouts with us, they get this cool shirt. It says the 1,000 Club. We put a picture of them, put them on the wall. 1,000 workouts. You do the math on that one. I think I did that same comment in the previous podcast. Right? It's a lot of workouts. It's a lot of time. And 1,000 workouts. ended up doing Spartan races, Tough Mudder races at the time. Yes, I mean, still had to go through the ebbs and flows of life, other things bothered her at times, but that need didn't bother her. And I haven't stayed in close contact with her, but I don't think she ever got a total knee. Now, will she have to maybe in her 70s, 80s? I don't know. It's a possibility, right? Because you only have so many, your tread life on your tires once you start burning them out is only so long. But besides the point, though, to this day, she's still moving and grooving. Doing very, very well. So that's what I'm talking about, guys, ladies. That's what I'm talking about. That's the fitness industry that the personal trainer can deliver on. And what made that story so profound is that the sick care industry, neurologists, osteo-based doctors, they said, no, that's as good as it's going to get. I said, I'm not going to settle for that. Now, they didn't want to settle for that either, right? But the test and their education that they had in their processes for measuring health, their measurement said, this is it. It's not like they wanted that to happen. It's not like they're like, sorry. No, they wanted her to get better. They went to that intense of a study to go that deep into someone's problems. That's what I really think about, right? Very, very few people are like, I'm just a badass because I'm smart, and I don't, it's like, no, they want to help. But their system and their way of thinking and their methodology had a limitation, more than likely because it was too focused. That's just my thinking on it. It was too focused. They didn't have the broader sense of collecting data or even being able to treat that person. And I did. Just personally, I did. And this way of movement can. So I have a lot more stories like that. That's just one of them. And it's just a good story to tell. But that happens weekly, if not daily here. And we're not the only ones, but we're just the ones talking. We're people talking about it. So what is our operating system? Well, it's essentially this wheel. It's a relatively ecosystem in a sense. It's essentially our training. All of our training starts with a movement assessment. That movement assessment has a lot of different ways to jump from that movement assessment, but we essentially have three major buckets of treatment here: care, training, whatever you want to call it, products. It's one-on-one training. It's semi-private training. Semi-private means it's one-on-4, one coach to 4 clients, but they each have individual one-on-one programming. They don't share the program. They each have their own program. It's not a fitness program. It's a movement-based program. May have fitness in it, but it's movement based upon their particular individual movement patterns. So I want to be very clear on that one. And then we have group training. And our group training has 3 distinct levels: level 1, level 2, and level 3. Level 1 is the easiest, level 3 is the hardest or more complex. Level 1, low in, like no box jumping, that kind of level. Okay. So they all start at the movement assessment. From there, they get either pushed, guided. That's what we do. We're just guides here. Guides to any one of the group levels, relatively speaking, or a semi-private level, or one-on-one level. The key focus of our facility is that we do not keep people in one-on-one training for the long term. There are a few exceptions, just a few. Is that one-on-one training is not our bread and butter. It wants to be our smallest program because we want people to go to semi-private and group. Why? Because it's more affordable. That's really that's the biggest factor. They can get more longevity for their investment dollar. Isn't that what we want, right? Fitness is not about intensity. It's about consistency. And money, is not something. I was going to say it doesn't grow on trees. It technically does, actually, because an apple is worth money, and you can sell that apple for money. So therefore, money grows on trees. Sorry, tangent. But so therefore, we want people to be here longer. That's the whole point. Now, if they don't have to be in semi-private, we want to push them to a small group. But it's kind of nice to have semi-private when you can always deal with those individual things that group training doesn't really get after. So we kind of like that hybrid. So that's the system that we coach on, we offer, we believe it is the system for sustainable professional practitioner in the movement industry development and lifelong career success. That could be done in individual settings, but it's designed for group settings. I think most trainers would probably, after a few conversations, agree with me that trainers should be in groups. They should be in teams. One-on-one is not sustainable. Again, there are certain markets where that is not the case. But for most markets, if you can be with a team, just like restaurant owners and not owners, but people work in restaurants are in teams. People work in law offices, teams. People work in any service-based industry. You know, they do better when they're in teams. So there's a lot of service-based industries out there. There's the labor market. We're talking about plumbers and contractors, right? A lot of solo guys out there, solo gals out there. But they realize how hard it is, where therefore just leveling up with one partner or two partners not only increases their leverage of business opportunity, but also their growth professionally and as a skill because they sharpen each other. That's what I'm really leaning into. We need to sharpen each other, and we need to kind of collaborate more and form more businesses with trainers, because it's not like I'm stealing your clients. Remember, 1.71 billion people have musculoskeletal disorders in this world. And there's a $600 billion revolving financial door in America that we can tap into. So there's plenty for everyone. Plenty. More than enough. So that's the model I think you guys should step into. So to kind of close this whole thing off, and I appreciate you just rambling with me. I hope it was entertaining at the very least. Here's what if I could meet Michael Hughes again in 2008, which is kind of the 4 years into my career. You know, I've had a decent amount of experience. This is what I would tell him. And this is what he already knew too, actually. But he didn't know how to find it. I would tell him, learn physical therapy schools, but don't learn it from physical therapy schools. Let me say that again. Learn physical therapy skills, but don't learn it from physical therapy schools. That's what I'd say. I'd say hire a coach. And if you think you've hired a good coach, stay with them. If you think you've hired a kind of a semi-good coach, then wait till another coach comes along and level up. If you think you've hired a bad coach, let them know that you want something else and just go look for another coach. But always be looking for a mentor. And when you can, be a mentee. When you can. Not like it's possible, but it fits your lifestyle and your business structure and your professional growth structure. Next thing I want you to do is get 80% of your schedules full with one-on-ones, as I was a one-on-one trainer then. And then once you get 80%, start moving into semi-private. Start collecting your clients. Say, who can do the 9:30? Who can do the noon? And start building your structure that way. That can go into more detail. But keep your busiest times for those more expansive times. So my busy time was 6 a.m., my busy time was 9:30, my busy time was noon, and the evening in my earlier career, 4 years in, it was hit or miss. So semi-private at 6, semi-private at 9:30, semi-private at noon, and only one-on-one clients in between that. That's what I do. And then pay attention to what times are being more impacted. And then maybe you turn those semi-privates into group. Maybe, because it depends on the business model you want to go to. But make sure those semi-private clients who still need to be in semi-private are still taken care of, right? So you're going to have to evolve your schedule, and there's going to be breaking some eggs to make an omelet. That's just the way it goes. Your clients, if they love you, if they're getting great results from you, will adjust. I promise you. I promise you. And take that price of semi-private and knock it down by like 50%. So if you're $100 an hour, make your semi-private 50. So when you get 4 people in, you essentially have the doubling the opportunity of income, but still give a great product. Not a good product, a great product. And then keep that 80% full process until you get group training, one-on-one training, and one-on-one training. Now you realize that once you have all those things, you're going to have the most dialed-in schedule as a one-on-one practitioner ever, or you're probably going to have to bring someone else onto your team or have join someone else, or you share clients from a group setting scenario, right? As a good starting point. That's what I would do. That's what I would tell myself. If 4 years into my career, start doing that. So end it with a little application. I hope that was helpful. As a bit of a rant on a lot of topics, I certainly enjoyed saying it. Hopefully you enjoyed listening to it. I hope it provided a kind of a provocative thought approach to the industry. If you're curious to want to know more, want me to do a topic on something that's kind of like this topic, kind of more niche, I'd love to do it. So I'm here to serve and to guide. That is my profession now, and my clients have just become clients and coaches, and I find that both of them are incredibly rewarding. To see a coach go coach other clients and do it in a way that you were taught from another coach. It's really awesome. So thank you very much. Appreciate you being part of this podcast, and I will talk to you all in the future. Peace.